There is a different feel between transacting in Bitcoin or Lightning versus the fiat rails like Venmo, other kind of fiat applications, Zelle, wire transfers, right? And when I think of Bitcoin, I think of actually emotions, right? Bitcoin is tech, but it's very emotional in the sense of, at least when I make a Bitcoin transactions, it's there's anxiety involved. You're scared, right? You feel emotions, and that's actually a good thing because you could get wrecked. So there's danger, and there's some like back of the brain mechanism that kicks in that's very emotional before you send Bitcoin. And that's because, when you play with fire, you can get burned. And, Bitcoin and fire are very similar.
Medium of Exchange is sponsored by the Bitcoin Payments Advisor. If you own or run a business and you'd like to accept Bitcoin but don't know how, the Bitcoin Payments Advisor can help. From specific software recommendations and accounting implications to training employees and marketing so your customers know you accept this new form of payment, the Bitcoin Payments Advisor can help simplify your journey in accepting Bitcoin for your business. Check out bitcoinpaymentsadvisor.com. Again, that's bitcoinpaymentsadvisor.com. Now let's get back to the show.
So welcome back, everybody, to the Medium of Exchange podcast. Really excited for today's conversation. We're joined by Keith, the founder and CEO of Branta, that is really working on building more trust in enabling Bitcoin payments, which is obviously the core tenet of this podcast. How can we get Bitcoin to become a medium of exchange? So Keith, thank you so much for joining us. Really just want to pass over the mic to you and give a little introduction into who you are, what you've worked on, what you're working on, and how you got into building and progressing Bitcoin payments.
Yeah, cool. Sounds good. First thing, appreciate you having me, Jack and Jason. And for the listeners, I'm Keith, working on Branta. And maybe just historically how Branta started was I wanted to see how I could take my own Bitcoin for myself. And this was around maybe very late 2022, but more 2023, probably late 2023, actually. And what I looked at was, how do you catch that in flight? So like, can you do a little trick, like a little party trick to hack yourself or divert your funds when you're sending Bitcoin? Because at that point in 2023, there were already quite mature solutions for kind of keeping your Bitcoin. Like if your Bitcoin's ice cold and it's not moving, if you generate that on a cold card or some other device, your seed's kind of offline. As long as you use entropy correctly, that's fine. So really my focus was on, if I'm using Bitcoin as a medium of exchange, right? If I'm paying people, whether that's rent, commerce, food, whatever, even invoices, right? Like PDFs and online invoices, that was the attack vector that I wanted to look at. And so it was a quite creative process getting to the point where we are now. But yeah, let's keep going. I don't want to just ramble too much here.
But no, I mean that's a really interesting perspective of taking almost like a hacker's mindset of how can I look at this thing that I've been told is unbreakable and try and break it. And I almost just want to ask as a follow-up there is, what did you find and how did that lead to what you're working on right now?
Yeah, right. So basically what I found wasn't too great. Like there's a lot of gaps actually. And we don't have to be too nerdy, I guess, about the attacks, but you hear about things like people losing their Bitcoin, or certainly a lot of the other cryptos as well. That's kind of a different story, and we don't focus on that at all. But with Bitcoin, it's pretty basic things. So the mindset that I have is that basically like Bitcoin is very cool, and it's a different class of cool than the rest of like technology that we have. In the sense that it's like, it goes back all the way to money in our evolution. Whereas internet, Facebook, eBay, PayPal, all of these things really don't go back to like humans' origins. And so unfortunately, Bitcoin is kind of running on that tech stack that is modern, that doesn't go all the way back. So you have digital scarcity and then everything else. And when I say the word unfortunate, what I mean is like we're using Chrome and Brave and Windows computers and Wi-Fi routers, right? Like the same Wi-Fi router that maybe the neighbors are using your Xbox on is maybe what you broadcast your transaction to the mempool with. So there's a lot of weird overlap between consumer tech and then Bitcoin, right? And so In Bitcoin, really the only dedicated hardware tech, or at least the most popular, would be mining, right? That's very obvious. We're at the ASIC stage. These are all produced at this point mainly in Asia, as well as signing devices. Those are also quite well. They're signing devices for broadly for crypto, and signing devices only for Bitcoin. So those are kind of the main two categories in the Bitcoin only tech stack. But then where Branta came in was like, I was confused, right? I was saying, wait a minute, if somebody is running Bitcoin Core on a Mac as their wallet, that's not great because there's easy exploits like the clipboard. And one of the really annoying and trivial attacks, we don't want to popularize it too much, but this happens actually pretty often, is clipboard swap attacks and just leaking privacy through using a clipboard on a consumer tech like Mac or Windows or Linux. And so one of the first kind of iterations that we took, which I think will come back and have more of an impact, but it's not really our core focus right now, is kind of an iteration to get to where we are today with Guardrail. And this kind of intermediary product was called Branta Core. And it's very cool. And what this does is run on your computer and kind of exploit your clipboard for you. Right. And I kind of said like my mindset is kind of adversarial against myself. Probably there's people that think like this and people that don't. But I think if you can take that and turn it on yourself, but then give it to the public in a way that protects the public, this is very cool. So basically arming people almost with this like, how would you attack yourself mindset? This is how consumer tech works versus Bitcoin tech. This is kind of the mindset and the approach that we've had so far.
And so you're taking that approach, you're looking to basically build a layer on using Bitcoin to be native for Bitcoin to allow transactions to feel like it's any other Venmo or PayPal payment that consumers that have not been using Bitcoin are like relatively used to. They trust that when they put in their friends or client's username, it'll go to that account or wallet and it'll get settled in the back end where we don't worry about all of the plumbing that's happening in that transaction. So just can you explain to myself and Jason and our listeners of what does that feel like for a Bitcoin payment using Branta, and how does it work from the the common process that is today of like scanning a QR code or pasting in a Bitcoin or Lightning address?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll talk about mainly what's live and what's available today. And so the first thing that you touched on is really, it's a great point. There is a different feel between transacting in Bitcoin or Lightning versus the fiat rails like Venmo, other kind of fiat applications, Zelle, wire transfers, right? And when I think of Bitcoin, I think of actually emotions, right? Bitcoin is tech, but it's very emotional in the sense of, at least when I make a Bitcoin transactions, it's there's anxiety involved. You're scared, right? You feel emotions, and that's actually a good thing because you could get wrecked. So there's danger, and there's some like back of the brain mechanism that kicks in that's very emotional before you send Bitcoin. And that's because when you play with fire, you can get burned, and Bitcoin and fire are very similar. So all that to really say Bitcoin's early. And now there's a number of platforms running Branta. And the experience of paying on a platform that is running Branta versus one that's not, it's subtle, but it's very important. Sometimes it doesn't matter. If you're sending $5 of coffee to a friend, not a big deal to run something like Branta. And really the term that we use here is prepayment verification. And so the key reason that we're even having this conversation is that Bitcoin's irreversible, right? There's no middleman, it's peer-to-peer. And so one of our core ethos is, in terms of design, is we want to stay very protocol adjacent, because that's how Bitcoin is, right? It's decentralized. You have on-chain and Lightning. And now with that, Bitcoin's a push system. So this is the core difference between Venmo and Chase, where yeah, maybe you're pushing money to a friend, but like what's really happening? It's not your money anyways. Like where is the money? It's in a database. But with Bitcoin, like yeah, you actually are pushing your value across the public mempool, and you don't need permission. So right, Bitcoin's a push system. Fiat usually is a debit credit sort of pull system is how I think of this. And what Guardrail from Branta enables is for you paying another person to look and see that you're actually paying that person. So prepayment, right? So Branta it comes in before you pay. And that's really nice because that's the whole problem, right? Like if you get scammed, you don't know you're getting scammed. No one wants to get scammed, right? But right now, consumers don't have a way to verify their money's actually going where they want it to go in a nice way.
Keith, I want to get into like the nuts and bolts of the user experience of how this works, but like stepping back for a second, what are the odds that you get scammed? Like what percentage of Bitcoin transactions are, failing? Like it goes to the wrong place. What scenario would that be?
Yeah. So my real answer is the number is too high. I'm not a huge stats and numbers guy. All my friends and all the people that I talk to are like, yeah, you should get more stats. You should come out and really hammer these points. And in my head, I'm like, yeah, like that's true. So I don't have hard numbers on like how many transactions go awry. But there's too many, right? And not only is there too many, like one of the problems is yes, you actually send your money to the wrong place, but the other problem is just hesitation to onboard to Bitcoin, right? So like you can imagine if there's a bank in New York that wants to settle at the end of the month with a bank in London, we don't need to name names, but there's a lot more confidence if you can have some sort of prepayment verification on like a hardcore channel. And that just doesn't exist today. Right. And so like when we allude Bitcoin to fire, it's just the early days. So yeah, in terms of the number of scams, it's just too many. It needs to be like flat zero. And like that is explicitly our mission.
Mm. That's a big mission.
It's a huge mission. And on the personal side, like I do think that it's if you can really give yourself to a huge mission, that's cool. That's fun. There's a lot to bite off and chew, right?
Yeah, and
I mean, yeah, what's cool is like you're not only approaching Bitcoin itself, that alone is a huge mission, right? But then solving the money problem is not just the store of value. It's great if you stick money under your mattress and it actually stays there and doesn't, rapidly turn into nothing.
Yeah.
But you also probably want to like buy goods and services with it and know that it will get to your destination, that you have confidence.
Yeah.
Is this primarily for consumers or for banks or?
Yeah, we can stay more on the consumer side, I guess, for this podcast. TLDR, like it's for everybody. I'll just spoil it. But one of the recent platforms we onboarded, shout out to Satoshi Coffee Company. Now, Jay runs that. Jay's here in North Carolina, kind of close to where I live. And he sells Bitcoin for coffee. Jack, maybe you've met Jay. I don't know. But, what Branta kind of unlocks for a use case like Jay is there's kind of two. One, if you're on a super sketchy setup, like a public Windows computer with Chrome, there's actually just an article recently on how I think like a printer device driver was doing clipboard swap. So that's annoying. You copy the address, whether it's the SegWit or the Lightning, and it just changes on your Windows. So that's kind of the one use case for something like a retail use case. But then with that retail, like if a restaurant wanted to order $5,000 worth of coffee in bulk or something like this, right? All of a sudden, if you're moving $5,000, you really just you don't want to get wrecked because it's just a loss.
It definitely addresses like one of, I think, the big concerns. The nice thing about credit cards is you can always issue a chargeback if you're a consumer. You can always get your money back, and it just like takes the stress off. And I think that is one of the like concerns so often for Bitcoin. And I like how you tie in the emotional aspect. Like you're kind of on the edge of your seat. Like, is this actually going to work or not?
Yeah, the emotional aspect. That's an interesting way to think about it, because I sometimes view that emotional aspect as just the opportunity cost of separating yourself with the Bitcoin. Of like, is this actually worth it? Do I actually want to buy it? But then there's also that other piece, and this is probably more for, to your point, getting people onboarded and comfortable of holding, their own Bitcoin and their own keys. Of, I don't want to lose this thing. I've heard nightmare stories of people losing their Bitcoin, of people spending their Bitcoin to the wrong address, and I'm a non-technical person myself, so that could I fit the profile of somebody who lost their Bitcoin. And the way that we can, I like how you said, really flatten that experience is just something that, it's early days. So it is playing and testing and what it will look like of how you can be so sure, and what that, address looks like in a way that's easily verified. Because right now, we're looking at what the first like five numbers and letters of the string, and the last five or 10 numbers and letters of the string, and it's it's not necessarily the greatest UX, let alone UI. So I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on where you see this kind of progressing in terms of what that can look like, and in terms of how we can make it as simple for the coffee shop owner who wants to buy beans for that month and pay in Bitcoin in a secure way.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think that's a really important topic, and I'm actually surprised it's not more discussed on Bitcoin Twitter. So yeah,
We
early
have a
days.
bunch of other things to argue about at the moment. I don't know if you're.
That's true. There does seem to be a lot to argue about. Yeah, I mean, for me, like I love UX, so I'm always focused on UX. And you're right that we are using alphanumeric strings that are not human readable or not easily human readable. And kind of like the point there, like if nobody's convinced on that, if we just drop like a SegWit address here, I would wager that Jason, Jack, and I, like none of us would, I wouldn't know whose address it is. So for all intents and purposes, like, yeah, Bitcoin on chain, Lightning, certainly, well, at least Bolt 11, there's not human readable. So then, right, there comes the question of like, do you use something human readable? Maybe like LNURL, maybe some sort of static address. There's kind of higher level designs that look familiar, more like, right, without pitching any other companies, kind of like sending money to an email, this sort of idea. Now that's great. And I'm actually really in favor, and I would like to see more design on that and specifically on that. So maybe, there's conferences that will be focused on almost identity and like usability on the human side. Now, nonetheless, even if we did move to something like a very human readable, like jack at money.io or some sort of thing that I'm like, yeah, I can actually remember this. Then, there's still the problem of shuttling that information to you. And that problem is highlighted because of the fact of irreversibility. So you still, even if you have some sort of human readable address, and whether you're on a platform, whether you're depositing to a vault, say this is like Keith at vaultcompany.com, right? Even then, like getting that string into my clipboard, there's still a gap in the clipboard. There's still the possibility of hijackings or phishing or fraud. Like the L maybe looks like a one, etc. And so for that reason, like you do still really want a way to double check against a different source. And that's really what Branta is offering. Like, right, I'll speak to what we have now. So, like, right now, what Branta really offers is kind of a mirror that will mirror back at you, kind of like a phone book or a contact book, right? And Branta will say, hey, yeah, this address checks out to actually Satoshi Coffee Company. Like, yes, you are paying Satoshi Coffee Company because you see it on Satoshi Coffee Company, whatever the website is, and then you see it on Branta. But importantly, Branta's cross-device. So we've specifically designed Branta to basically be, I have to be careful with my words, to be comfortably used on not so secure devices. Point being, like you can go from your iMac to your iPhone or your wife's Android easily and still verify like super quickly. So it's like a super easy, there's no sign up, there's no friction, there's no software. And that's why the design is cool. So if you're about to say you're about to buy $5,000 of bulk coffee for a restaurant or a festival or whatever it is, the next Bitcoin conference, you can, yeah, pull up your checkout, pull up your invoice. Okay, here's the address from the merchant, but boom. All right. On the same computer, I verify with Branta. And if I want, I can check that on my mobile as well. So yeah, I think the original question was more along the lines of like, the nuts and bolts of the alphanumeric addresses. But, and I thought about this a lot, right? Because I do think there will be advancements in like, are you really going to open Strike and look at a SegWit address in 10 years? Maybe. That's the protocol. Maybe not. Advancements can and probably will be made very slowly and carefully, but nonetheless we do have final settlement. So like a precautionary layer like Branta, we see a lot of value in it.
And how does it work? Like, let's say I'm a consumer, I'm buying some coffee. Do I got to download an app? Do I like, how does it work?
Yeah, no, you don't. So I hate apps. There's too many apps. I don't even like my phone. So yeah, we specifically said without cursing, uh, no more apps. There's too many. It's security holes. Sometimes they're necessary, but yeah, if you have a checkout and you're about to drop in 5K for the coffee, since this is now our official example, how it works is at the checkout screen you'll see a little link that says verify with Branta. Boom, you can click that, and then in the same browser, new tab, Branta will mirror back the address to you. So that's the very, very basic use case. And that's kind of the sort of attack where maybe you have a browser extension or your actual browser or somewhere on the screen, the GUI is attacking that merchant. Maybe it's a very popular website like mycoinvault.com. Right, so Branta mirrors to you in that case. Now, if you're more paranoid, maybe you scan the QR with, so in the future, we'll have wallets integrated that's coming online where you can just scan and the wallet actually offers that, metadata to you. Right now, we kind of have a QR code on the website that does this, or you can just check on a different device. But yeah, so basically, I'm probably elaborating a bit too much here, but at checkout, you click the verify with Branta link, shows up a big green bar or a big red bar, address verified, address not verified, and then you have that extra confidence.
So it's almost like a credit card transactions, like accepted or declined. It just tells you accepted or declined.
Yes, it's exactly like that, but before you broadcast to mempool.
It's amazing. This is really helpful. This is a needed product.
Yeah, I thank you, man. That's cool to hear. That's kind of what we've been hearing, but we also like kind of we failed like 1,000 times before we got to this model, or a lot. It felt like so. Yeah, we're still polishing, but we think it's really good, and like we're really excited to share it. And to anybody listening to like roast me in the comments or whatever. I want the harsh feedback, and yeah, appreciate the words, Jason.
Hey, we do too. Like, give us all the comments you want on the podcast. We need the feedback too. So, but I mean, I've been in the fiat payments world for a long time, and it's a, as a consumer, you run the transaction. It's a big transaction. Your bank declines it. Let's say. Well, you don't have to worry. Like, did that $5,000 transaction? Did the money get moved out of my bank account into the merchant's bank account? Probably not, because it's declined, right? Yeah. And so for Bitcoin, you really need that, right? Like, but you flip it, so it's before the transaction. It's verified. You're good to go. Accepted or declined. And then, so right now, this is like on the merchant side. They're ones that have to implement this until it gets implemented in like consumer wallets and stuff, right?
Yeah, so there's actually a lot of nuance here in terms of our obligation to build this properly. Right. For the consumer, we will always, not even the consumer, for the consumer at home or the professional in the office, we will always design everything to be as absolutely sleek. And basically we're going for security through convenience, which I've never heard before. I'm making that up, so don't repeat me. But security through convenience is really interesting. And so, yes,
you should trademark that. I've never heard that either. You should trademark that.
All right, we'll make a note.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of like adoption, right? Like if we want to put on our business hat, because I know Bitcoiners are actually super smart. Everybody's smarter than me. So if you were running a business and you wanted to onboard 10,000 coffee shops, okay, you need a lot. You need help. That's hard. Right. But it turns out, you can do that kind of high touch in the beginning, perhaps, and then, use that to, how do I say this properly? You can kind of go from that approach on. Maybe you get a few bespoke integrations, but then if you go for the bigger fish in the pond, I'll name a couple. I won't name names, but the bigger payment processors, right? So for any businesses out there that are using something like BTC Pay or the commercial alternatives such as, let's just say IBEX, Zaprite, Pay with Flash, OpenNode, right? There's many payment gateways, payment processors, these sort of things. For Branta to have an integration there, all of a sudden you have many more kind of all in one go. Maybe you get 10,000 merchants. Maybe you get 500 businesses, right? So that's kind of on the receive side. And that's really cool. So then all of a sudden, all these businesses offer to their consumers a way to make sure the consumer's not getting wrecked. You don't have a chargeback in Bitcoin, but like, all right, well, if your customer got wrecked, what do? It's not great. The business doesn't want the customer to get wrecked. The customer does not want to get wrecked.
But solving
So
this peace of mind bottleneck is a huge issue. Like this
yeah,
is like, in addition to tax implications and all the various other bottlenecks, like this is a huge roadblock, I think, for consumers.
yeah, I mean, I agree. Yeah, so that's kind of like on the business side, and then I completely agree too. And like, we had a very short story here. There's a very cool person who lives in my town. Maybe you can guess who he is, or you know who he is, but he's kind of big on Twitter. He's a funny guy, super smart, and he got scammed from our Bitcoin Telegram meetup. What happened was a fake Keith messaged the fake, let's call him Bob, and said, "Hey, I want to buy through your mining site, $600. Can you front me the money?" And anyways, my Bob sent money to the fake Keith. But even in that use case, there's applications. Now that's really small peanuts compared to the bank wire analogy, or the mass retail. But even there, right, you have gaps that keep coming up, and I could go on, but let me let you ask more questions here too.
Well, I have a kind of more, I guess, broader question and more about Keith the entrepreneur, Keith the person. And I'm interested. I know a little bit about your background, but I don't want to share too much. But I want to just give you the floor of kind of where you grew up in a professional setting, how you got kind of molded into that perspective, and then what you've learned from the former industries that you were working in, and how you've applied that to really Bitcoin and pushing forward the mission that you described before.
Yeah, so I think I've kind of said this before, and I'll repeat it because it's true. When I was very young, what I was very drawn to was design, first of all, kind of in an artistic way, in a creative way, and in a freedom way, right? Like design is the ultimate freedom. Like, how many? So if you're at home, like maybe go on the SEC or the various three-letter agencies and try and find like any regulations on design. I don't know if you can. There's no regulations on creativity or art, unless if you get canceled. Maybe if you get canceled online, that's like an unspoken regulation. But anyways, the point is, I was very drawn to design because I felt a lot of freedom and expression, and that's very human. And I also felt a lot of attraction to programming. Now, I was born I guess there was like a Nirvana album when I was born, 94. So I was born in 94. And at the time, computer science was very hot. You could make a living. I wanted to eat well. So I studied computer science. And I was drawn to computer science for the same reason as I was drawn to design, because it's actually, you can't really regulate speech either, or code. And code is speech, and programming is just speech. So I was very attracted to that. Now, obviously, for commercial applications, yeah, there's regulations, there's compliance, and that's more of like a kind of civilizational level implication. But on a personal level, you can program and you can design what you want. So that's very much what I was drawn to. And what that spun into was I studied computer science in college, and I landed at Bloomberg full time writing code. And that was a very formative experience. And that was in London, England, New York City, a bit in Washington, D.C. And yeah, I mean, Bloomberg's huge. They have like 6,000 engineers. There's only like 89 people in Bitcoin total. So obviously, it's a big firm, and obviously, I'm joking with those numbers. But yeah, somewhere along the way, I think every human should try and get creative, and the timing kind of just worked for me with Bitcoin, and starting Branta, and seeing the number go up, and also reading books like the Bitcoin Standard. And really, just my approach with everything is curiosity. So yeah, I kind of just wanted to go where no one had gone before, and with Branta, and just kind of see what came out of it. And so we're here. And what was the last thing I was going to say? Yeah, the only other note I would make is probably many listeners are entrepreneurs. Probably a lot also are 9 to 5s, which I think is a great way to just stack sats. And probably a lot of people in 9 to 5s are kind of bored. How many? I don't know. I don't want to ask the audience to comment, but like low key, how many of the 9 to 5 professionals are bored or have downtime in their day? I did. And so what I did was kind of hack internal systems in a white hat manner at Bloomberg. Not as like a formal designation, but like let's see where the hole's at. And I think that really carried over directly to Branta.
That's really cool. And I like how you're able to bring that institutional understanding of how both these payment processors and how the code and the engineering within a very large organization works, and then transfer that to, like you said, a much smaller developer community in the Bitcoin world, but for a much more profound and broader mission that Bitcoin represents. And I think that's great, because I have a similar background, not in a technical sense at all, but in a more like kind of human sense of how do we get people to understand the importance of why saving matters, and how you can use a better savings technology like Bitcoin to then ultimately decrease or increase your purchasing power over time, where prices actually decrease in when denominated in Bitcoin, to then where you want to spend it, because it's kind of all you own. It's your savings, and that's where we're in this transformation right now of building out the tools of building that trust and creating those experiences for users that using Bitcoin just makes sense because it's the better, faster, cheaper option. And I think those of us who are in the weeds and who are fully orange pilled get that, but then it's translating that to be able to market to the masses, to as many people on the earth that have connection to an internet and can download a Bitcoin wallet and start stacking sats.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Keith, so you were at Bloomberg. What is your Bitcoin story?
Uh, I think I've said this before too, but really, like, I just don't like complexity. And like Bloomberg's kind of the king of complexity, and like also first thing, like much respect to Bloomberg. It's a phenomenal company. It's very well run. So not dissing Bloomberg at all. In a lot of Yeah, in a lot of ways, many of the companies such as Bloomberg that are, on top of the fiat system, they're actually there to add transparency and try to add simplicity, but fiat itself adds so much complication. And that's my Bitcoin story. That's all I'm really going to say is like, you know, um, if you see complexity, you are probably getting lied to. Like, like when you study physics, it's like, man, there's like three things. There's like atoms, electrons, and neutrons. Obviously I'm simplifying here, but like that's all it is. It's just the same few things over and over. Like the physical laws of the universe are not that complicated. Like, yeah, there's other mysteries, but the point is like I got orange pilled because I just saw the complexity and then I just felt like I was getting tricked. And that led to the motivation to say what the heck is money. And I mean, I'll credit Saifedean's book. Like the Bitcoin Standard definitely illuminated like this is kind of what's going on. That book like tore down my understanding and it rebuilt it up.
Yeah, as for so many, I could imagine. It's pretty much same for me. I saw Saifedean speak when I was interning at a large financial services company in Boston in the summer of 2018. I was an intern, and he had just released the Bitcoin Standard, and he like basically gave a keynote on it. And I was lucky enough to be in attendance there, and I had known about Bitcoin before that, but after that, I was like, okay, this thing is legit. I believe in this. I'm orange pilled. And, it's funny because over the last few days, just especially with the price run up, I feel like it's natural. Uh, Kind of thinking back on that journey and over the last, 7 or 8 years, what it's actually looked like of getting orange pilled and being to where I'm at now, where I'm comfortable talking to people, teaching people about Bitcoin, having a Bitcoin podcast where I can bring on entrepreneurs like yourself and really just get into the details of how others will eventually have to come on too, but we want that experience for them to be as uh, as smooth and integrated as possible. And kind of that leads me to my question of with Branta, I want you to kind of go deeper into what Guardrail is and how Guardrail has really been one of the defining products for you in how you've come to market and announced a few partnerships. And I'll let you kind of elaborate there.
Medium of Exchange is sponsored by Polaris Payments. Let's face it, for now, businesses still need to accept fiat and credit cards. Polaris Payments helps with all your credit card processing needs using a consultative approach. Think of Polaris like a performance coach, helping take your business to the next level when it comes to accepting all forms of money. For more information about Polaris Payments, visit polarispayments.com. Now let's get back to the show.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for the question. So yeah, Guardrail is the product. So yeah, Branta, the company. Branta actually means goose. It's like the Latin name or the species of a goose. And it kind of just came to me. But Guardrail is the product. And the name Guardrail is because I thought we had emotional guardrails before sending Bitcoin. And I thought that was inefficient. Right. So like apprehension, anxiety, like why scale out or like let apprehension and anxiety lay dormant in say however many millions of people as a guardrail instead of just building a codified guardrail. So that's why it's called Guardrail. And it's also just metaphorical of like, yeah, don't run off the road, right? Don't lose your car off the road. Don't, or if you're bowling, right? You know, the bumpers in bowling for all the bowling people. Don't let your ball roll off into the gutter there. So that's why it's called Guardrail. And yeah, what Guardrail does is just like a wormhole. Like it lets you look through to the other side and see, yeah, you're paying bill if you want to pay bill, or you're depositing to your own vault from another one of your vaults, right? So there's actually like the funny thing is, as we've gone, we've realized that every single use case of sending Bitcoin applies to Guardrail. And so it's funny, I was kind of bashing complexity, but now like we're kind of at this inflection point of there is a lot of complexity actually, because there's every single use case for Guardrail. There's the interbank, right? So there's the bank in New York settling with the bank in London. You know how you punch in a wire for everybody who's punched in a wire, you do counting, account number, routing number, and then boom, there's like a pre-population field, right? So that's almost like a prepayment verification, actually. That's probably the closest analogy, although I didn't realize that until much after we started Guardrail. There's that use case. There's also the use case of putting money in your own bank. There's so many use cases of Guardrail, and we want it to be seamless. So, yeah, what was your main question there? Like, did you want to hear about the Guardrail product?
Yeah, and just how businesses are really partnering with Branta and the Guardrail product. And I know you announced back over during Takeover in Austin with the partnership with Amboss and other, I'm sure, companies that you're working with to bring it to market and further bring it to the masses.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, the Amboss partnership is actually kind of a layer on top of Guardrail that uses one of Amboss's products for risk compliance, specifically on Lightning, so Bolt 11. And that's for things like making sure you're basically not laundering money. So like AML, OFAC sanctions sort of thing. And Branta and Amboss partnered because we're adjacent to each other in the market. The data flow is very similar. There's a lot of shared kind of incentives and business alignment there. So that's kind of that partnership. And then yeah, in terms of Guardrail actually kind of going to market, obviously, I think it's probably fair to say like right now it's May 22nd, 2025. So yeah, I mean, I'd be really curious to know. I wish I could know how many people in your audience have heard of Branta. I'm guessing it's very little. Right. So like, yeah, it's probably not many people. We haven't really tried to make a big splash yet. We just want to build. We just want to get the product out there, get it, doing what it needs to do. We'll be loud later. And so, yeah, with going to market, we have a lot in the pipeline. I wish I could just drop names. We've had a lot of conversations. Some of them I have already kind of dropped the name and I won't point them out. Some of the payment processors, a lot of the one-off merchants. Now, the payment processors make a lot of sense for us business-wise, just in terms of efficiency. The one-off,
and you're talking about like the gateways, like Bitcoin payment
yes,
software. Okay, yeah,
Yeah, because that's kind of like one stone, many birds, I think is
Yeah.
the expression. Now, on the other hand, like we do just have friends and family or, kind of friends in our Bitcoin network that have onboarded early. So, yeah, we're kind of attacking all fronts, to be honest. And we've specifically spoken less about the institutional case and the larger vault cases just to be, a bit more, I'll say, reserved and professional in the sense of there's levels of seriousness in terms of volume, right? So you cannot really compare a retail merchant or an apparel merchant to somebody like a two of three multi-sig provider with, $15 billion locked up. It's just different.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of conversations in the background. There's been a lot of good feedback. Like we're very excited. We think this infrastructure really is just, it's just going to take things to the next layer in terms of polish for the user case, medium of exchange specifically.
I mean, yeah, I'm imagining the use case of me opening my wallet and I'm getting ready to send you or Jason money, and I click on what feels like just a tab or a hyperlink in the wallet, and it connects to a Branta verification or a Guardrail verification. Green, good to go. All right, sweet. Send. It's the same thing as that 2FA when I'm logging
Yes.
into my bank account
Yeah.
and it's like, yeah, send me that extra verification to my phone and I'll put that into my computer. And that that added security, although it takes a half second longer, it makes me feel more secure because I know that the person who's halfway across the world that's trying to log into my email account, they're not going to be able to get in. And that happened to me literally last week. And I had to go and update my passwords and go through that whole song and dance. But at least I was like, I have 2FA enabled, so I haven't lost any important information, at least as I know of yet.
I
Yeah.
wonder if 2FA could even be more of a psychological anchor than credit card authorizations and declines because it's
Mhm.
prepayment. And so you're already used to like banking, security, 2FA,
Mhm.
right? Like all kinds of that's a very normal
Yeah.
thing at this point.
Yo, I'll drop some alpha. Yeah, like we're actually that's one of my notes right now is like, yeah, 2FA for SegWit, or not SegWit, but 2FA for on-chain addresses, right? Where you have like a
Mhm.
rotating six digit pin. All right, so I'm being creative here. This is off the script. Alpha. But yeah, like so prepayment, it's before the thing happens, before you stamp it. Same with the 2FA. And so we literally have these design mocks on like, do we kind of tell the story. Nothing fundamentally is changing, but like Bronta's new. There's no way to describe it really. So 2FA is useful. I completely agree. And um, like maybe there is an interesting scheme for any builders out there. Like maybe you do a short hackathon project where you get some sort of hash or salt from the address, and obviously there's more addresses than there is in a six-digit pin, but like if you could somehow like reference an address to a rotating pin totally anonymously, like that's really interesting in its own right. Now that's a whole new technical sort of design, but yeah, just the metaphor of the 2FA as well. It's like, yeah, you're 2FAing yourself. Now the interesting thing too, and Jack, you were kind of talking about this with the wallet. You pull up your wallet, boom, half a second. It's more like 200, 300 milliseconds for the round trip. Um, but software can actually require that in a hard coded way or not require it. So in the case of a merchant, like so if you're using your own wallet, because it's bring your own wallet, which it is right now, like the kind of the implementations out there, we can't block payments, right? Like it's the user's funds, it's peer to peer. They can send money wherever they want. But if you imagined a wallet, and I also have to be a little careful what I say here as well. But if you imagine a more tightly integrated wallet that had Branta hard coded and would not allow you to send if the address wasn't verified, that's a whole different ball game. So I'm just going to kind of make this up, but imagine a slush fund of like 10 grand for a business account, and that 10 grand was authorized with seven different business vendors, right? Approved vendors. So then you've got that 10 grand, but that wallet is hard coded to only accept these vendors by the Branta integration. So like you can actually build custom rule sets for something like this as well. And now this is all kind of, we're talking about the future, but like none of this is built.
Programmable money.
Yes.
And I like the fact that we're talking about the future, because I think that we are approaching that future of Bitcoin being that medium of exchange. And if we don't have that type of programmable applications that are enabled and accessible for people, then we can keep seeing tweets from Bitcoin influencers saying never sell your Bitcoin and never use your Bitcoin. And that's one way to use Bitcoin, but there's other ways to use it as well. And there are ways that can be of great advantage to those who adopt.
Yeah.
Have you guys been to Steak and Shake yet and pay with Bitcoin?
We don't have it here where I am. It's like 6 hours away.
Yeah, there's none close. There's none close in Austin either. But Steak and Shake got a huge presence in Indiana when I was living out there. So
I haven't made it over there yet. I'm like 30 minutes away from one. I'm planning on going over there, and I'm pumped to pay with Bitcoin. I mean, it's exciting. But I'm imagining that's probably not like the primary use case because the average transaction size is so low. What do you expect, your ideal client to be, or ideal average transaction size? I'm sure it's like a threshold and then everything up from there, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean the first thing is, so one, I hope there's Steak and Shake in Las Vegas. I haven't looked, but I've never had Steak and Shake. Like I'm on the East Coast here in North Carolina. We don't have it, but dude, seeing those receipts and like the speed, the tri-speed, I think provider of the Lightning. Yeah, I have like FOMO, but I love to see people spending their Bitcoin, honestly.
I believe there is a Steak and Shake in Vegas, and
Okay.
I'm slightly concerned for whoever the manager of that restaurant is next
They're
week
gonna have to
at the
staff
conference.
up, man. They're gonna have to staff up for next week.
You guys are both
Yeah.
going, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Steak and Shake next week. That'll be good. But yeah, like at Steak and Shake, do you need to prepayment verification for a burger? I'm not going to. Who cares? I'll just buy another. It's like what? No, that's also, yeah. It's like the risk. Like what's the motive, right? So really, like for something to go wrong, it's like actually, the funny thing is, Branta, yes, is built for adversaries, but oftentimes we're our own adversaries, and so engineers are smart, but if something goes wrong in like a back-end system with a vault, gosh, and if the vault internally doesn't even get hacked and starts putting out bad addresses, that's equally as bad. So that's another way things can go wrong, actually, and that Branta can, mirror back to you, hey, wait a minute, something's up, in the case of not even being attacked. So I guess the point was like with Steak and Shake, right? What's the incentive to attack? I'm not going to hack somebody for a burger. I don't hack people anyways, but the hackers probably won't either. Hackers are going for Bybit and Bybit's peers, right? So yeah, I mean, our ideal client, it's interesting to think. Ultimately the market will decide in terms of what the pricing is, right? But you can imagine if I'm sending, if somebody is sending $100 million of value, you want to do prepayment verification and then some. Test transactions are kind of used today. And as that amount gets lower, I think the incentives to attack get lower. But there's other variables as well.
So when banks start custodying Bitcoin, your product would probably be pretty useful.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And I know you talked about, the size of a 2 of 3 company is very different than like a solo merchant. And you're getting into a whole nother territory with banks, but even more use cases there, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Definitely.
A lot of opportunity for you, my friend.
Yeah.
Because the banks are coming.
Everybody.
The banks will be, yeah, they're going to be, this is like to your point, this is like very useful on the medium of exchange era, right? Like everyday consumers buying goods and services, especially for larger, medium to larger transactions. But institutional movement of money, no one wants to go to their customers and say, we lost $100 million.
Yeah, and like right, no one wants to do that. And today, like internally, yeah, companies they can build whitelists themselves, right? And I thought about this a lot as well. I'm like, why doesn't everybody offer prepayment verification themselves? Why would they use a third party, right? And so like I really thought about this thing and like how would I attack the business if there's a business here in the early days? That was my thought, right? Well, if I'm going to spend time on this, how would I destroy this? And one of the, maybe what's the word? Attack points would be, well, hey, third parties are security holes. Why should we trust you? Okay, I've heard that a million times. Not about Branta, but you've heard the saying. And what I, kind of came to conclude is that yes, third parties, okay, third parties are security holes, but what does somebody mean? Typically, that means when a third party is integrated into the stack as a requirement of the runtime, meaning you have a flow and you inject a third party as a dependency, right? Whether that's a UI library on a website, whether that's a backend runtime thing, whether that's another step you have to do in onboarding like KYC, that's a attack vector, obviously. Um, and then I realized really at Bronto, yeah, we have our own tech stack, but our tech stack layer is on top. It's augmentary. It's to the side. It's really not in the critical flow for the use case that we're talking about, right? Like Branta doesn't custody the funds, and in that sense, it wraps around. So is it a third party, or is it more of like this different thing on the side that's more of a mirror?
Like an authentication tool.
Yeah,
That
that's such a interesting perspective to look at it, and taking that approach of like of what you were saying, like third parties can raise some eyebrows, and I think what's interesting about your story and how you've kind of presented this whole use case is that idea of relationships, of being almost like that friend or that guardrail that keeps you on the tracks for that ease of mind and peace of mind when sending a payment. And I just kind of what are your thoughts on that, and the idea of building these relationships and creating that kind of you know collaboration between different technologies, that you're able to just be like, hey, I'm gonna be that good neighbor that's gonna watch your house while you're out. But
Yeah,
I'm not gonna go in. Don't worry.
yeah. So two thoughts. We actually have a post on our Substack called "On Decency" because I hate the word privacy and I like the word decency. And privacy is a negative word. No, privacy is the least sexy topic. If you if you're in a romantic setting, do not talk about privacy. If you're in a privacy is just not hot. So, anyways, so yeah, for the first thoughts, go to our Substack, read the post on decency. We can put it in the show notes. Second thought is, if we had had this conversation 6 months ago, I actually think the name Mirror, like Mirror, would almost be a good name as well instead of Guardrail. Right? It's a new thing, but like now that we're talking about this, is like, yeah, it's a mirror that's showing you back that source of truth. But yeah, so on the point of the third party, yeah, as a runtime dependencies. But one of the decisions that we made was like, and we almost did this subconsciously, but we didn't want to inject runtime libraries into our clients, right? Because then then you are a third party. So how the actual technical integration works is it's via like a like a secure auth network handshake native to the client stack. So say we have uh, what's the name? Maybe like a fake payment gateway. Let's call it fake payment gateway. They don't install any of our libraries because then all of a sudden, wait, we're distributing binaries to them. We have to support 20 different binaries. Very weird sort of setup. We have to have Python, Rust, JavaScript, Ruby, Java. Like, right, that's annoying for us. First of all, we have a huge risk on our hands, and then we're literally a third party dependency and we're a security hole. Yeah, so yeah, how we operate is not that. It's a mirror over the network preemptively ahead of payment. So it's kind of this weird thing where like, so in terms of building a valuable company, this is a whole nother kind of angle, but like Bloomberg, it's a data company. Google is a data company. They have different sources of revenue, yes, but they're data companies, right? And so Branta is very uniquely positioned in the sense that we actually know where payments are going before they go there. Now, not every payment we see is actually going to be completed, right? Because somebody can open a shopping cart and see a checkout and they can just leave. They can say, "Oh, I don't want these shoes anymore. I'm going to leave." Or I'm not going to pay this billing invoice to this business in Europe. Forget about them, right? So you can maybe not pay, but Bronte actually knows the data ahead of time too. So in terms of just like accruing value, that's really interesting because we're not really aware of other companies that kind of, label, in a sense, like we preserve privacy, but there is some knowledge, right, that the platform gives us. I'm like, hey, yeah, this address is mapped to myvault.com or whatever. We're not taking people's socials and phone numbers. We actually really don't want that. All we take is IP, but everybody should run a VPN anyways. And the IP is just because we're a computer company. You can't really not see the IP. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot there, but yeah, I think we covered like third-party security holes. Like we've taken measures to avoid that. The preemptive data is really interesting. That's probably like a third order effect that I'm basically saying it now, but you can't really see it until it happens. And somebody smarter than you approaches you and says, "Oh, like maybe there's this use case or whatever." But yeah, I mean, it's just like there's so much open space in Bitcoin. Like your question, Jack, was like, how do you think about this? It's like, I don't know. Like you just kind of get in the weeds and look around.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I was just gonna say this is probably I have to go back and listen to more of your shows, but this is probably one of the more abstract medium of exchange rips, huh?
It's great. I mean, I love it because so much of Bitcoin is still being built out, right? Like this is a form of money that's like what 15 years old or so. So this is really important to think about these things and build this stuff out so that the world can, to your point, feel emotionally safe and secure when they move their storage of time and energy, which is money. It's pretty important.
Yeah. And like another of the like really gnarly topics here is like would Satoshi approve? Does that matter? Whatever. I'm not gonna ask that question, but like would Hal Finney approve? Would Adam Back approve? Like what would the OGs think of the design like Bronta? Yeah. In my last sentence there would be like, because we're literally colliding with centralization and decentralization. And that's a crazy place to be in.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate your perspective on this from the fact that you are an engineer, but you can also take it and look at it from a true like end user experience perspective. And a lot of the tools in Bitcoin don't necessarily feel that way. So building those out and at least seeing those use cases in action allow us to see what happens. And to what you just said, like if figure it out, explore, see where it goes. Because at the end of the day, it's anybody on the protocol can put something out and try to improve Bitcoin and try to make it better for others. And the way that you've been able to weave that web of the technical versus non-technical explanation in the emotional versus like uh the emotional piece of it too is something that is going to be extremely important over the next 5 to 10 to 50 years of adoption, because if it's going to where we think it's going, then uh, there needs to be solutions in place, and you're kind of leading the way on helping bring those to market.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. I love the feedback. Thank you for that. Yeah, and like one of the yeah, the power of podcasting is crazy too, because like if we had this conversation 6 months ago, it would not have been as good. If we have it, we should have it again probably in 6 months, and it'll be a lot different, and I suspect better. And so yeah, I really think like being creative and trying to bring something to market too, and like I really think Bitcoin's still a blank canvas. Like obviously, right? Like it's just so early still, and everybody says that.
The blank canvas of Bitcoin being money.
Yeah,
So from there you could just see what happens. Just we'll see.
yeah.
But
I guess
at the
I
end of
was
the day,
kind of, and I was gonna kind of go in the direction of like the concept of really throwing yourself into something and just seeing how it evolves. And like when I started Bronte, it was literally just the idea of like how would I wreck myself. It was literally that. But it was also, how would I wreck my friends, or how would my friends or family or my loved ones get wrecked, right? Like, how can I try and prevent that? And then, yeah, it just kind of unraveled from there.
That's awesome. Solving problems.
So, Keith, let's say, so we talked about the coffee shop or the coffee wholesaler. Let's say you are, you roast coffee or whatever it is that good or service you provide. Just getting super practical for a second. What is like one piece of advice you would give to a business owner considering Bitcoin payments? Obviously, Branta, make sure your customers don't get wrecked. But just like practical, like they currently take Visa and MasterCard and maybe paper checks.
Yeah. Yeah. What I would say is, yeah, no hate on the fiat. I would lead with that, like, no hate on the fiat. It works. Cool. But what's really cool is like a little bit of redundancy, because I think a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs have had the problem of a single point of failure. But Bitcoin or Lightning, and just use a hosted solution if you're not already up and running. Use a very easy off the shelf sort of thing to get started, and then maybe you get more advanced, but that will give you full redundancy for if vote the wrong way, if you get canceled, if your bank account gets frozen, if there's an outage. You have a totally different rail to run in parallel, and you're going to get more rich. And if you're more rich, that's really good, because you can do things like eat a little better food, have a little more time with your loved ones, you can get a little more sun. So yeah, if you run any business, you should accept Bitcoin, and just talk to these guys, talk to me, talk to anybody. Like, Bitcoiners are overly passionate. We're all turbo nerds, and we love you if you're going to come in and also accept, cool money.
You could literally talk to just about any Bitcoiner and they would excitedly give you their time and energy into helping you get set up.
Yeah, there's no celebrities in Bitcoin. There's just people.
I love that. Yeah. It's really true.
Yeah,
Cool.
appreciate it, Keith. I had a lot of fun, learned a lot.
Yeah, cool. No, this is super fun. This is like a perfect podcast for Branta too. It's funny.
I'm so excited for your product.
I think that's what I'm pretty sure that's what I said, or if I didn't, then I meant to when I reached out to you on LinkedIn. I was like, dude, I started a podcast about medium of exchange, and I just kind of thought of Branta immediately.
Yeah, that's awesome. Wait, Jack, so are you in Bitcoin Park, Austin right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I actually came onto the park full time. So I'm leading our office down here, working as Rod's chief of staff.
Amazing.
Helping put on all of our summits, conferences, workshops, meetups, everything in between.
Yeah. Amazing. I'm stoked to get back. And Jason, where are you?
I work out at Bitcoin Park in Nashville.
Okay.
Well. Just
excellent.
The other location. So
phenomenal.
Yeah, if you're ever in Nashville, hit me up, man.
Yeah, it's not that far. The last time I was there was the 2024 conference.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, hey, let me ask both of you one question though. So I think first of all, the branding is on point. It's great. Medium of exchange. Let's hammer that for a while. But what are you most excited about? And I would just ask each of you that for the next, specifically for Bitcoin medium of exchange this year.
So, okay. I run a fiat payments company still today. And I have hundreds of merchants that I work with on a almost daily basis, And so many of them could gain so much from Bitcoin. And if you're a business owner, well, what better way to stack sats than to just like turn on the neon sign or flip the sign around that says like we accept Bitcoin, or stick that sticker on your, right in front of the Visa and MasterCard logos, you're effectively DCAing in, dollar cost averaging into stacking sats. And to your point, redundancy, alternative rails, all of that. And I think that I cannot predict the future, but if we do go into a bull run, then that kicks off the media cycle and people start talking about Bitcoin again. And then, I mean, like, number go up is like the best marketing tool ever. And so if more merchants can provide, can like grab hold of the hope that Bitcoin brings, that is something I'm really excited about, because so many small business owners are, the joke is like twice the work for half the pay. Like if you're a small business owner, because you wear all the hats, like you're just grinding. And a lot of small business owners kind of get out of that fiat trap, but a lot of them don't. And they end up, doing a great job serving their community and their employees, but they're just like overworked. And Bitcoin, in some ways, fixes that. And so that's my hope.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I'm so bullish on Bitcoiners. Like the people that I've met, the people that we've talked to both on this podcast and just at the park over the last 3 or 4 months, between the takeover week that we put on that Keith, you were in town for, between all of our meetups that we've been doing in Austin, and then last week we had our Texas Energy and Mining Summit, where we brought together close to 200 energy leaders, policymakers, entrepreneurs, grid operators, Bitcoin miners, obviously. And just seeing these people all with the same mission, working towards the same end goal of making Bitcoin a better money for the future, and really saving the debt crisis that we find ourselves in, and the inflationary spiral that many have pointed out. It just creates this optimism of a better tomorrow I it's hard to keep a straight face when you're talking about it. You mentioned Adam Back as like, would he approve of what you're building? And we were able to host Adam Back at the park yesterday or 2 days ago, whatever it was. And it was just so surreal of seeing him in the stands or in the crowd at first, to listening to other Bitcoiners who are building really cool things and just taking it in. And then he gets on the stage, and those same people who were just talking are now sitting in their seats listening to this OG, this guy who was one of 8 works cited in the white paper in itself. So just to see like Adam Back, who's as OG as they come, and then someone like Dr. Thomas Hogan, who is a professor at University of Austin, a literal 1-year-old university. Like that spectrum of people who are continuing to build this mission and spread Bitcoin and educate and provide products and services and goods to the market is just, it's hard not to be bullish. I think of sometimes I think of what it's like to be a bear, and I get sad for 30 seconds, and I'm like, damn, that sucks.
Yeah.
Like that sucks. So it's nice being perpetually bullish because of Bitcoin, and because of the people that were able to curate these experiences to just let the smart ones cook.
Yeah.
Like there are a lot of really smart, really driven, really impressive people in Bitcoin, and if my contribution can just be like create a space to bring them together and have that opportunity to talk and to collaborate and to build, then that's all I can ask for. So yeah, it's just bullish on Bitcoiners perpetually, but especially right now.
Yeah, so true. I think like there's that tweet that keeps going around that's like, you don't change Bitcoin, Bitcoin changes you. But like that's actually really deep, and it's kind of like not that well said in my opinion, that tweet. And it should be more like, Bitcoin it touches people, but it changes people, but it touches their heart too. And like you see Bitcoiners come in, like who leaves? Who leaves Bitcoin? There's some cases, early days, right? Like with the fork wars and some other kind of drama. And that's healthy, it's an adversarial environment, but yeah, can't be more bullish on the people themselves.
Have you guys read the book 21 Lessons, What I've Learned from Falling Down the Rabbit Hole?
Oh yeah.
I
It's
actually
a
haven't read
great
that one.
book. I haven't
I've
read
read
Bitcoin
Excerpts.
Standard, which don't tell the Bitcoiners that's
All right, so
true. But
Jason, that's a swap for you and I.
yeah. The way I like to say it is like, once you look down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, you can't unsee it, or you can't forget. It's been said before in other ways, but been said more eloquently than that.
Yeah.
But
So actually, that's one thing. Yeah, that's very true. Like you actually can't unsee truth. You can like layer lies on top of it. Yeah, that's the thing, is like once somebody sees a true system or something factual, people don't see that, do they?
Yeah, you take the orange pill. There's no going back, Neo.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why it's so powerful. Yeah, and it's the same thing on like truth. Like you can't closed source truth either. Like truth is also open source. Isn't that funny? Like what's truth? It's like, okay, love. Well, you can't close source love, and the laws of physics. Well, you can't close source the laws of physics. You can just reach out and touch them. Growth, like energy, you can't close source energy or Bitcoin. It's just so deep.
I heard of that.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool that we've discovered it, and that our friends and family and others within our own personal network will discover it, because knowledge expands
Yeah.
and discovery expands each and every day.
Steak and shake next week.
I'll
Hell
see you
yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Awesome.
joining us, Keith.
Thanks so much, guys.
Dude, this is awesome.